Hello. Today we're going to introduce a segment, at least for one episode, called Old versus New. And today we're going to be taking a look at the characters from Beast Wars, Rhinox, and Rattrap. Here we have their original 1990s releases, along with their new generation releases. And so kind of first off the bat, you can kind of see the difference in the sizes and everything. The generations are actually a little bit bigger than their original releases. So first let's go ahead and we're going to take a look at Rhinox. Okay, obviously right off the bat you can see that Rhinox, there is a little bit of a difference with him. One of the big things that you'll notice about the Generations line is they're going for the more realistic and also more show accurate look. Now you have to keep in mind there's been about 20 years of engineering advancement from the time that this Rhinox was released to the time that the Generations version was. Now kind of the obvious difference is, like I said, is the show accuracy. This is more in line with what a real rhino and what Rhinox looked like in the show. You've got the brown and everything, and one of the things that the 90's did in their original release was they wanted to make the animals look a little bit more fearsome, because you got to keep in mind this was the only second show they had, so they were more leaning towards what makes this toy stand out. I mean, if you were to release this back in the 1990s, it was just kind of, back then it would have been viewed as boring, but they're like, let's just put a striped spotted rhino with gold eyes on there. You know, again, to a 5-year-old, this is going to stand out more than this is. So anyway, the difference in the color scheme is just one thing. We're going to look at how much of the robot is exposed in beast mode. Now on the original Rhinox, you can kind of see, if you look here and here, it's more exposed along with the arms on the underside and the robot feet. Not a big deal, because if you're looking at most of the time, that's what you're going to see. It's hidden pretty well. Rhinox, all around, the new one, the only thing you can really see, I mean, they even did well to expose on the underside, because again, the only thing you would probably see is just the stuff on the legs. But really, it's really disguised well. So again, you know, 20 years of advancement, you're going to get a little bit of change. Now, as in regards to Rattrap, again, same sort of thing with Rhinox. You know, this is more of the early attempt to do a Rattrap, because I mean, one of the things that you look at is underside. I mean, that's just, he's all exposed. There's nothing to hide it there. On the new one, you know, it's still there, but it's a little bit more cleverly disguised. You know, from the side, yes, you can see it both on the new one and the old one. The arms are just kind of sticking down there. They've kind of stuck along. Well, that's actually the leg, but the point is it's kind of hard to basically just shove a rat or a robot up inside of a rat's body. So again, it's not a big deal. So what if you see it? One of the things that is major improvement is this original Rattrap and transformation. The tail pops out of this place, and this all folds up and everything to expose the robot inside. Well, one of the things about it is this actually, it just, you know, just stands out. There's nothing really there to hide it. I mean, but then again, to a 5-year-old, that doesn't really matter. On the new Generations, everything, even though you can see the lines, it's a lot more clean, it's a lot more real. You've got the detailed fur running all along the rat mode. Really, it's really well done. You know, there's just something to say about coming back out with these figures and seeing what they could do to make it better. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at them in robot mode. And I'll go ahead and just show off Rattrap since he's very easy. Basically, you just pull the leg out like that. Everything else just kind of falls into place, and boom, you've got your Rattrap. And his guns are here on the sides. They come out and form the big gun that you see him use in the show. I know you're old, Rattrap, just stick with me. His arms, being on ball joints, they like to pop off. So, anyway, here we have that. rifle. And it doesn't exactly sit well in his hand either. Just kind of sits, you know, falls out. But anyway, there's your original Rattrap. And anyway, once we kind of get the comparison between him and the new one, you'll see a lot more difference. Okay, so here we actually have them both transformed, and wow, what a difference. The camera is showing them a little bit whitewashed on the paint, but I can assure you the colors on this Rattrap are so much more accurate as opposed to this, what looks like a knockoff, and probably actually I can tell you is. Just the amount of detail and difference is so amazing. What you see on the camera, that's the exact amount of detail you see on this figure in person. I mean, you see the gears up here, the little purple head and everything, and really there's just a lack of overall detail on this figure. Well, here it is in the 2014 release of Rattrap. I mean, there's detailing almost everywhere on this figure. Really, and the face is just, I mean, that is spot on. Why this is painted purple, I will never know, because his original top of his head right here was always silver. And one thing I was pleasantly surprised to find out is through the back of his head, it looks clear through here, but it's actually directly through to the light piping on his eyes. Now, I can't really show you the light piping effect right now. It's not really impressive anyway. One thing that I am pleasantly surprised about is the rifle. Again, it can split in two like the original one, but this one is more accurate to the show version. Now, if you'll remember, one thing in the show that was really cool was on either one of his arms he could open up compartments, and he'd have these charges that were in his arm. So you just simply pop up this and bring this out, and there it is. And you can hold it and everything else. Now, it's only this one arm. The fact is, as you can see down here, this is where the bottom of the charge sticks out right here. But it's not really a big deal. One of the things that I am really digging on these figures, I don't know if you can tell it really well, but on both of his arms he has this little maximal symbol, and I'm just digging that so much. So anyway, this is basically just the difference between these two. And the difference, you know, on the back, the one big complaint I have is this, it kind of sticks down, and it's not really noticeable in robot mode. I mean, I guess you can kind of tell if you're looking for it, but overall it's not too detracting because the wire in the tail doesn't let it fold up just flush. You know, has a little bit of resistance there. But his backpack really doesn't bother me when I compare it to the originals. You know, yeah, it's not the most fabulous thing ever, but the fact is overall, the Generations one is definitely an upgrade from the original 90s one. So anyway, I'm actually probably going to stick him and the original Rhinox on eBay. But again, just you really can't compare them too harshly because, you know, like I said, I keep saying 20 years of design development will let it go from something like this from the 90s up until present day engineering. So it's a dead giveaway that this one is the better out of the two. Alright, next up is Rhinox. So here we have Rhinox and Rhinox. And again, the difference in detail is very apparent. Let me flip this piece out there. Yeah. Okay, if one thing you notice about one Rhinox is very much the head, and you're like, what is that? Well, in the 90s, it was this big deal with the deluxes for the Beast Wars that they gave them battle masks, which inside the battle mask lay the robot head. Now, if you see, this gives him elephant ears, and it's ridiculous. I mean, I like the detailing and everything, but another thing you're noticing is, wait, Rhinox is green. Why is he red? Well, another thing that Hasbro did was one of their big shows that it was on was Fox Kids. So they had what they called the Fox Kids variant, and therefore this variant is red. Now, as a kid, I didn't mind. You know, green's okay, but I mean, he's red. Come on, that's kind of cool. Another thing you'll notice is Rhinox, his original assortment of accessories. Never had a sword, but they needed to reuse the rhino tail somehow. So there you have that. And everyone loves Rhinox's spinning chain guns of doom. Okay, you know what? Whenever I was younger, I didn't care. I still used it as a machine gun. But again, that's okay. Another thing is the design back then in the 90s. This is just nasty, massive amounts of robot rhino kibble, whatever you want to call it. I hate that term, kibble. Anyway, new Rhinox keeps the silhouette of how he's supposed to look. Menacing, big, and powerful. And you know what? This kind of reminds me of the new guy from Age of Extinction, the one that parachutes out and has the little, things on his side. That's what it reminds me of now. But anyway, one thing you'll notice is with the new Rhinox, they managed to have his hands and his forearm be part of his beast mode leg. That's cool. I like that. This one, obviously not. The one thing that they did is on both of his arms he has kind of these little sort of like not chains but kind of feathers looking thing with the spikes on them and everything, which that's cool, for adding an aesthetic to him. The basic thing, the open rhino mouth, the guard plate here over his crotch, and the feet and everything. The one thing this thing does lack that Rhinox did have is these little spike things coming out of the lower part of his leg. But you know what? It's just a nitpick of mine. Again, like with Rattrap, the detailing is amazing on the new one. Now, the one thing you will notice about this Rhinox, as opposed to this one, is on top of his head, with the exception of the eyes and the inner side of the mask here, along the ridge and along here and along where the ridge meets the top of his head here, it's just all red. Now, the blue and the gold break it up, but in the show, Rhinox had the gold detailing there. Now, what they've done with this Rhinox is really good, because as you can see on his face here, he has it on his beard, on his eyebrows, on the ridge here. One of the things I really love is, again, they did the maximal symbols on his head just like they are in the show. And if you remember one of the episodes when he got turned to a Predacon, those were changed into Predacon symbols. But anyway, that's just useless fact for the day there. But again, overall, really like both versions. This one better just because it is better. I'm not knocking the old ones. Back in the day when that's all we had, this was Rhinox. It was just the top of the line. He was cool. And to his credit, him and Rattrap, they are still cool in their own right. There's no denying, they were the original versions of these characters. And overall, really no complaints. A 5-year-old, even today, would still love this toy. As an adult, I still like this toy. There's no knocking it. It's Rhinox, regardless. They're both the same cool character that was just awesome in the show. Rattrap, on the other hand, he's really good too in his own right. The improvements with him are really good too. Overall, yes, there are problems with Rattrap, but that's just on his backpack. I can deal with that. Final thoughts on these 4. Well, again, like I said, you can't really complain, in the 90s, and even right now, I'm looking at them, and these ones, the first releases, like I said, for their era, they were released in, they were good, they were perfect. Not exactly show accurate, but who cares? When you're 5, you're like, oh my gosh, it's Rhinox, I want to play with him. Well, as an adult, you're like, hey, this harkens back to my childhood. This is really show accurate. He'll be a good display piece. It doesn't look as ridiculous as the ones I played with as a child. These ones, like I said, excellent display pieces. They sit there on the shelf. These are meant more to, these can be played with if a kid has them, but these ones are designed for a child to play with. These, with all the detailing and all the paint apps, these are meant more for display. And so, anyway, it's just, if you like these characters from the show, and you want an updated cool version and can afford it, then go for them. I mean, I highly recommend them. I grew up with Beast Wars, so I'm a little bit partial to them above all else. But, you know, like I said, really good for the price range. Excellent on them. They do look show accurate. They are not anything like the Generations Dinobot and Generations Cheetor, which were, you know, they make true fans want to vomit because they look nothing like their show counterparts. They were more far off than the 90s releases of their characters, which were more show accurate. Anyway, these guys are really highly show accurate, and if you can afford them, then I definitely recommend buying them. So anyway, that has been the review for the 90s and Generations Rhinoxes and Rat Traps.